Okay.
Cool. So I guess this is where we start. Hi, everyone who is watching. We're here to talk about being involved in research, as both of us are involved in different kinds of research and in slightly different ways. So we have a bunch of different things to say, which is exciting. So my name is Leah. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a junior this year.
And my name is Emma. My pronouns are also she, her, and I'm also a junior.
All right. So let's start by just talking about like the basics of the subject that we're researching and like how we got involved and got started with it. You want to go with?
Sure. So I am researching competitive structures in the secondary classroom, and I am specifically interested in like teachers' perspectives on that. Like, how does UIL affect your classroom? Do you see effects on your students? Do you see effects on your like curriculum? Like, what is the deal with that? And I also might be interested in talking to administrators to see if it's really as big of a deal as a lot of us think that it is, or if we could focus on other things in our teaching.
That sounds really cool. So is that going to be more of like a qualitative thing done through like interviews and stuff?
Yeah, I think so. That's the direction I'm going towards. I was thinking surveys, but I just don't think that's going to get deep enough into what I want to do, which makes it kind of tricky because, like, qualitative isn't as easy to really prove.
Yeah, it
Versus
is.
like a survey has like literal numbers and you can make like an equation to figure out things, but
Right. Yeah.
I think it would be more beneficial to do like not a survey, to do a interview.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a very interesting approach.
Mhm.
Uh, the research that I'm involved with is actually a study that Dr. Napoles is leading, and it's regarding teachers in training, their ability to detect errors when listening to a choir. So basically, the idea is like if you are standing in front of a choir and leading rehearsal, how likely are you to like notice that they got something wrong? And specifically in this study, we're looking at how the physical act of conducting affects your ability to detect errors, and then also whether the opportunity to study the score and hear a correct oral reference beforehand affects your ability to detect errors as well.
That's so cool. That's literally like what I have to deal with every time I get up and up front to conduct. I'm like, what's my hand doing? Wait, what am I listening to? Did anybody just do anything right?
Yeah.
It's hard. So that's really cool that y'all are doing that.
Yeah.
Um, what made you decide to do your research?
Well, I so this is Dr. Napoles' study, and she was very kind to invite me onto it about a year ago. I had been talking to her about like a couple ideas for my own research, so she knew that I was interested in doing research eventually. And when they were, looking for another person to add to the team, I came to mind because I had been talking to her about that stuff. So she invited me on. So that's how I ended up becoming part of it.
Cool. Yeah, I feel like mine was totally different because mine is all just kind of like a self-paced thing.
Very
I was,
different.
yeah, I was just having a lot of conversations about things that I was unhappy with about being, a teacher and like having to go into that in the future. Like, I don't want to teach UIL, like, and I don't want to like have to do like 3 months of my school year just on this one competition that doesn't really mean anything in the long run. And so I was just having all these like annoyances basically. And I was kind of trying to think of like, well, what are like the main reasons why a curriculum is, words like how curriculums are limited, and to like competition was one of the things that I really thought about. And I just think it can really affect the culture of the choir in general. I've had a lot of personal experiences where things have just gone poorly because we were just like focused on being better than other people, or being worried about other people being better than us. And so that's just kind of why I'm interested in that. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's really neat. I've actually been thinking about similar things, and like the fact that we're not just going to be choir directors, we're going to be music teachers, and is competing really the best way to be teaching music?
Yeah, and there's surprisingly like not that much research that like actually means much. There's a lot of research or a lot of like articles written by professors talking about, I don't really like competition. And like there's this one guy in University of Colorado Boulder, his name is also Dr. Austin, like we have one here, but he's written like a lot of pieces that are like opinion pieces, but he has like one or two actual studies also on like the effects on elementary students, but like there's a lot of opinion pieces that I've been finding, but there haven't been as many like research studies. So that's kind of why I was like, well, maybe I could do that and kind of fill in that gap.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
Especially because like anyone who's writing opinion pieces is already has like some sort of bias.
Exactly. And I mean, I'm biased right now because I'm obviously like trying to find, like I hope that the answers that I get support what I think, but I have to go through and like do this whole process to see, are people actually feeling the same way that I am? Like, are these directors at 6A high schools, really that influenced by UIL? I was talking to Dr. Coppola and he was saying, I should ask them, you know, but not in like a biased way, but what would happen if you got twos? Would you get fired? Would you lose your job? Would you like be demoted? Like how far would it go if your school, who has historically done really well, did worse in a certain year? Like what would that be like? And that's kind of what I'm interested in. There's a whole bunch of things that I'm interested in. It's hard to like really narrow it down to what it needs to be, but
Yeah. That's one of the thing, actually, one of the most interesting things that I've learned about just through being involved in research is like how narrow the research questions need to be. And like, I think it's very tempting to go in and like try and answer this like large, broad question, but it's
Mhm.
not really doable. And so like narrowing it down to something really specific is the way to go.
Yeah, Dr. Napolis has been helping me with my research too in like a different way, but she keeps talking about this like inverted triangle of like super broad like competition, and then keep getting like lower and lower in that triangle to where the very bottom is like, this is exactly my question and why my
Mm,
question needs to be researched. And it's really hard to go through all of those steps and to like really figure out, well, what do I actually want to talk about and what is actually going to help prove my point with my research. And so
right.
that's something that's really difficult. I'm like kind of in the process of doing that right now, but it's really interesting.
Yeah.
So
Um,
we're both in really different stages in our research. So I thought we would talk about that for a little bit. So why don't you go first?
yeah. So I joined the study after like all of the sources had already been found. Most of the manuscript had been written, and they were basically ready, had designed most of the study too, and were about ready to start implementing.
Hmm.
But then COVID hit, and so the entire design went out the window. So the part of the research that I've been involved in is like the design, and specifically how to adapt our design, which was originally going to be done in person, to be done remotely. And then we've also begun data collection and started running participants.
That's so cool. Um, yeah, I was actually in your study, so I've seen it from the like participant viewpoint, but I can imagine like having to deal with the COVID restrictions in a study like that where you're like literally like having to conduct and make sure all
Yeah.
these things are like going on at the same time. That could be really hard.
And like I will say it took us longer than a semester, like a summer and most of the fall semester, just to adapt the procedures. So I think that's something to keep in mind is like obviously like the data collection, like the implementation of your research is kind of the flashy part. but like a lot of work goes into the design to make sure that it's testing exactly what you mean for it to be testing, and there are no biases like we've been talking about, and there aren't any other variables that might be affecting it. So we had like a whole bunch of conversations on Zoom and through emails about exactly how to take these procedures that were going to be done in person and turn them into like basically videos that could be shared through a screen, and then make sure that we could also see the people and make sure they were doing the things they were supposed to, and that the scripts for the videos weren't confusing or misleading. It took a long time.
Yeah, that sounds, oh, I don't even want to think about it. It seems so complicated. I mean, I teach my lessons and I like struggle because my students are behind me and it's like hard to hear and then things cut out. So like I I applaud you for going through all that.
Yeah, COVID's been interesting. And
Yeah.
yeah, they expected to be like done with this study by last semester, I think.
Oh, whoa. But it's still going on.
It is, yeah, we've run about half the participants we need. So if
Okay.
you haven't done it yet, we should, I think at some point we will be opening up more times, or you can just talk to me or Dr. Napoles about just setting something up individually. But we need more people, so
Yeah, I mean, I already did it, so I can't, but
for
I'll,
everyone listening.
yeah, I'll spread the word.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm kind of in like the opposite um position as you were because I'm like doing all of the research and like finding articles and reading books and doing all that right now. And so I haven't even really like figured out exactly what I'm going to do yet, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to do um the qualitative interviews, but I'm not totally sure yet and I have to talk to Dr. Napoles about it some
Yeah.
more. I need to email her, but right now I've been doing this like online training thing for it's called like the city collaborative
Yep,
program,
do that
but
too.
basically it's like this training course to get you ready for like submitting your proposals to the institutional review board or the IRB. And so it's like teaching me all about that whole process and how like all of the risks associated with doing research and how, the benefits really need to outweigh the risks and you need to make sure
Right.
that things are anonymous and all this stuff. So
Mhm. Like
that's
the ethics
been,
of research.
yeah, that's kind of what
Which is
I've
kind
been
of what
focusing
the
on.
institutional review board is there to enforce. And I think you've probably at this point had more experience directly with them than I have. So if you want to talk a little bit about what working with the IRB is like.
Yeah, I actually haven't worked with them at all yet because I haven't written up any of my stuff yet. Um, Kind of what Dr. Napoles wants me to do next is to go through and write like a little article that's kind of like it's called a literature review, and then get that hopefully published through a publisher that does like literature reviews. And then after I do that, then start doing the actual research, and then not the actual research because it's all research, but doing like my actual study and then writing that and then hopefully getting that maybe published somewhere. That would be cool. But I haven't gotten to the place where I'm doing the actual study or like trying to get it approved yet,
Because
though
you
that
like,
probably will be in the works soon.
yeah, because you need to like figure out the design and like the specific things you're going to ask before you can send it to the.
Yeah, exactly. I have like a list of questions that I want to ask, but I need to make sure that they can be backed up by other research and all this stuff. So it's kind of more complicated than just asking all the questions that I want to ask, even though I want to. But and the other thing is with doing like an interview, it would might be kind of hard to keep them totally anonymous. So making sure that I don't say, this is how many students they have, this is the area. I can say like maybe DFW area or like Texas, but I want to make sure that like I don't have any identifying factors, but it might be hard because I'm going to be asking them about their program. So that's something I've kind of been thinking about through doing all this online training, fun stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think we
Okay,
can go on to it. One other topic.
sure.
Um, let's see. We've pretty much covered what have you accomplished. Yeah,
Mhm.
let's talk about what resources have been the most helpful through the process.
Okay. For me personally, professors have been the most helpful, and like grad and PhD students. I first talked to Carrie Adams about everything, and I was just like, how do you even get started with this kind of thing? Because I didn't want to ask Dr. Napolis if I didn't have a clue about what I was doing. So I asked Carrie, and we did a Zoom. And then I've been talking to Dr. Napolis, and she's encouraged me to talk to other people. So I talked to Dr. Coppola, who taught music ed 3 for me, and then I talked to, oh my gosh, what's his name? I talked to somebody else. I'm like kicking myself because he's literally writing a book on competition right now. Um, but I like just totally blanked on his name. But I talked to him, and they all gave me some like resources of like other grad students and DMA students that are also researching competition. So I'm gonna try and reach out to them eventually. But people have been the most helpful, and then yeah, I would say that. I haven't taken any classes really on research yet. So
And I hope that people who are watching this have seen, I think there have been some things floating around in the upfront about some studies that grad students or professors have published. Like
mhm.
every grad student and every professor, especially in music ed, has done research or
Yeah.
is doing research. And so, like, if you're interested in getting involved in research, they know what they're doing enough to be doing it. I'm not sure anyone can say they know what they're doing. We were talking about that earlier, that
Yeah.
we're both doing it, but neither of us feel like we know what we're doing.
Exactly. What about you? What have been really good resources for you?
The same thing, obviously being on a study with three professors who are very experienced in research has I've learned a lot through that. Um,
Mhm.
and I guess the other thing I'll just throw in here is if you are in the Honors College, the Honors College does have a series of research courses that will eventually lead you to doing like an honors thesis proposal. So if you're in the Honors College and that's something you're interested in and something that can fit in your schedule, those classes I think are a great help, and they will help you just be introduced to like all the steps of research, and then there's a class just for like designing and creating a thesis proposal, and then you also get honors credit for doing your research and your thesis proposal. I wanted to take those classes and I couldn't because I was way too busy. But if
Yeah.
if you are interested and you're able to take them, I think those are a great resource as well.
Yeah, I agree. I wish that I would have taken them earlier on. Now I just don't have time to. So that's kind of why I'm not doing it. And I'm not really even like I'm in the honors college, but like not really. So I'm like I've taken one, and I don't plan to graduate with honors. So that's why I'm kind of just doing it on the side on my own. But yeah. What have you found to be the hardest part of your research?
I was thinking about this, and honestly, I think the hardest part for me has been the imposter syndrome.
Mm, yeah.
Like, okay, I'm on this team. There's four of us. There's Dr. Napoles and two other professors, and then there's me, and I'm an undergrad student, and technically my title is like, I'm a member of the team, which makes me a co-author. But like I still just tell people that I'm a research assistant because like in my mind I'm like I'm not good enough to be a co-author. What are you talking about? And
Yeah.
especially with and I told you about this earlier, these presentations coming up where we're going to be presenting our study at some conferences, and like Dr. Knuckles invited me to be part of those presentations. I was like, oh my god, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of feel that I feel like every time I talk to somebody about, "Oh yeah, I'm just doing this little thing." I try to like downplay it because I don't but it's like it takes up a lot of time. Like I've spent hours and hours like scouring through resources and doing all this stuff, and I don't even have like anything to really show for it yet.
I
And
mean, you've done
so
a lot of literature review. That's not
yeah,
nothing.
so it's like I don't know, it is hard. I feel like it's hard to talk about too because like with my topic, it's very divisive. Some people really love competitions and they had really good experiences with it. Other people hate it, and then some people just don't care, but, like, I don't know, it's just very divisive, and I feel like every time I get into a conversation about it, people start, like, being defensive, and then I'm like, "Oh, I'm not trying to, like, say that, like, whatever you wanna do is, like, bad, it's just, like, this is my teaching philosophy, and I wanna try and support it, in some way." And if I'm totally wrong, then that would be something cool as, like, a learning experience for me to, like, get over that bias that I have from, like, personal bad thoughts about it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that is tricky when you're researching something that so many people have like as this core philosophy.
Yeah, it's kind of to me, it makes it, like, extra important to to
Right, yeah,
research, but
absolutely.
at the same time, it's, like, tricky because I mean, if I want because at some point, if it like, my research ends up being, significant in a way to or, like, significant enough to me to, like, want to present it like you're presenting your stuff, then I don't wanna, like, go to TMEA and present and then be totally canceled by everyone in the community because I'm saying that UIL is not the best way or whatever my research says, but, like, I'm hoping that it says, like, UIL is not the best way to teach and that, it shouldn't be something that you focus on so much, but I don't know, I feel like I kind of worry about everybody just, like, hating my research. And
Well,
it's
I
gonna
think
feel like a
especially in a topic which is so nuanced like yours, and especially, and I think this is also sort of underscores the fact that like you're doing a qualitative study, like it's not going to have a clear cut answer. I don't think it's going to be a
yeah,
nuanced answer. But yeah, I think a objective study is a it's important in a situation like that, but also to realize that like you're not going to get just an easy answer out of it.
yeah, which makes it fun. Yeah, so what do you feel like you've learned through the process of your research? Like, what's the biggest thing?
Um, I think we touched on this earlier, but like just the importance of the design step,
Mhm,
and just to not skimp over that.
yeah,
And just how many like other like things you need to keep in mind during the design. And how easy it is to accidentally introduce your own biases or accidentally introduce other variables. And also like because the other researchers on my team have a lot more experience with the IRB, and so a lot of our discussions have been like, is this going to fly, or like, are we going to get called on this, or like, are publishers going to like note this particular thing and say that this could make our study not actually necessarily be answering the question. So like really thinking about it not just from your own perspective, but like the perspective of the people who are going to be reading and deciding whether to publish, and potentially reviewing and citing your research. That was something I hadn't really considered before when thinking about design.
yeah, that's something I haven't even really started thinking about. Oh my gosh, that sounds
So
kind of
tricky.
yeah, that sounds kinda scary. Oh, okay, fun fun things to look forward to. Um, I think for me, I've learned, like, about myself in a way, like, I didn't think before that I would enjoy, like, reading a bunch of articles and reading a bunch of books and doing all this stuff, but I kinda like it, and so I've been trying to read more books and stuff, but some of it's just, like, about my research, but some of it's just for fun, I read The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, and that has nothing to do with competition, and it's kind of sad, but like I just have found that I like really like reading and learning in a new way that I didn't think I would. And I've also learned about a lot about like with this training I'm doing right now, like how the process you said is just so tricky and long and you have to be really careful about everything. So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
But there's so much cool research out there once you go looking for it. Like, kind of off topic, but like when I was writing a paper for my American music history class, I stumbled upon this research study about like how a cappella groups and like the skills that you can learn through contemporary a cappella groups can contribute to a choral program.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's something that I've been involved in a cappella for a long time, and that's so interesting. I just found this thing so randomly and it was fascinating. And like you just people have studied so many cool things.
Yeah. I mean, I've been getting into like psychology of stuff too because I feel like my whole thing is kind of psychology related, that like
Right.
competition and like the mindset that people have. I don't even sound coherent right now, but the mindset that people have about it, is kind of based in psychology. So I've been reading a bunch of stuff about um the oh my gosh, I don't even know what words are. The let me look. Let me look. I'll have to edit this. Let's see. There's this whole entire thing by Morton Deutsch that's the social interdependence theory, and that basically has been stated like multiple times and proved in many other subjects. I haven't been able to find anything in music or like in like I can't say words. Like I haven't been able to find anything within music, but I've found stuff like he did his on biking, but it's all about how like a competitive and an individual like learning environment is not as helpful as a cooperative learning environment. And I think a lot of the times we get on this mindset of like, well, choir is like a cooperative thing, but it's tainted by that competition. And so you're just like less productive and it's just worse all around as a result. But that's something that's really interesting, is like the psychology side of it to me.
Yeah, and those sort of interdisciplinary things, like are you planning on uh just reading up on psychology enough yourself, or are you thinking about like, talking to someone that has more expertise in psychology and having that be part of it?
um I think I haven't thought about talking to someone in psychology about it, but I might, because that would be interesting. Maybe I could find like somebody, because there's some people like these, there's like this group of they might be a couple, I don't know, they both have the last name Johnson, so all their research is Johnson and Johnson, kind of like that one brand of toilet paper or whatever, but it's not the toilet paper brand. But they talk a lot about the social interdependence theory, so maybe like I could reach out to them or people who have taken from them, like taken classes from them or learned a lot from them, and see how I could adapt something like that into my own research. If not in this one, then in future research studies.
Yeah. I ask because one of the things that I'm interested in eventually researching on my own has to do with like uh, pronunciation of I'm blanking on words now. Basically, phonetic spelling of like non-word syllables in sheet music and how that affects singing pronunciation. And I am feeling like I may need to like collaborate with a linguist on that because I
Yeah.
don't know enough about, especially like trying to come up with like a quantitative way to measure vowel shape. I would have no idea how to do that.
Yeah, well, you could actually, okay, this is off topic, I guess, not really, but you could, so in vocal pedagogy, we had to use this thing that it was like it could tell your like formants and overtones and stuff. And
Hmm.
basically, based on your vowel shape, it would have a different shape on the graph. And so you could
Right.
probably do it using the graph and then have it be like that. But also, linguists are good. Apparently, the entire like, um, what is that like department at UNT? The linguist department basically. Yeah, they're really good. I know people who like have been a part of that and they say like really good things. So you should talk to them.
Yeah. And I will eventually take vocal pedagogy. I do plan to do that.
It's a good class. I liked it. Um,
I've heard, yeah.
yeah. um, anyways, I guess what are some benefits that you see of doing undergraduate research at all?
Ooh. I mean, I think we, especially as music ed students, like we're getting a lot of different ideas. Like every music ed class I've taken and every music ed teacher I've had has had slightly different teaching philosophies.
Mhm.
And I've liked certain things from each of them, and I've not liked certain things from each of them. And, you know, my entire idea of like what a choir classroom should be and things that I might have sort of taken for granted as this is just how you know, choir class works when I, you know, graduated high school, I'm questioning now. And so being able to like take those questions and take all these different ideas and then like really go deeper into them and like figure things out, I think that can be really beneficial to just understanding like where you want to be as a teacher, what you want your classroom to look like, all of that.
Mhm. Yeah, and it totally like doing it now when you have the resource of having like all these professors that you can just email. I mean, you can still email them once you've graduated, but it might feel a little different. I don't know, but like having all these people around me that know about it like equips me with the tools that later on if I want to, you know, look up something about something that I've been doing in my class that like hasn't been working out very well or something that has been having a lot of success and I want to like build on it. Now I can like have the tools to look up research articles about that and see like, well, why is that the way it is and what can you do to be better at doing what you're doing, because that's what we all want to do is just be the best teachers we can be.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
I also think it prepares us if you're like thinking about grad school or like going all the way through and getting your PhD, like it prepares you well now before it's like for me, this isn't a grade right now. So I can make all the mistakes I want. I can take all the time I want because it's my project that I'm doing. And
Depending on it.
yeah. But I mean, obviously I want to finish it like maybe before I graduate, but like, you know, I don't have a grade attached to it versus like when you're a grad student, when you're getting your doctorate, like it's literally your grade is like kind of especially when you're getting your PhD, like you have to defend your dissertation and like you have to be able to write a dissertation in the first place. And those are like 200, 300 pages, sometimes more, sometimes less, but like being able to write that much information is a big task. And if you haven't done it before, it might be really intimidating.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, like I think it's easy to take for granted that like at a university, we're surrounded by so many smart people.
Mhm.
And taking advantage of that is just such a great thing.
Yeah, I agree. Um, I guess one last question is how can other people get involved in research? Do you have any wisdom to add?
Um, I mean, I was going to talk about the honors college classes again.
Mhm.
That would be one way if you're in the honors college. But honestly, I mean, I guess what I can speak to is like getting involved in a professor's research. If you know about some research that a professor is doing and you think it's interesting, you might talk to them and they might you know, invite you onto the study. And that's a great way to like get involved without having to like figure out everything yourself, like it seems like you're having to do.
Yeah, fun,
Um,
fun times.
but if people want to just jump right in the way you have, you should be the one to speak on that.
Mhm. I think like just getting involved, like kind of figuring out like what questions you have is like the first step, right? And then you're like, okay, well, I want to learn more about that. So then like without even like no strings attached, right? Just like look up stuff online. Like we have the entire library resource at our disposal and you can find so
Library
many
databases
things.
are so good if you can figure out how to use them.
Yeah, like there are some journals like JRME, which is one that Dr. Napolis is actually an editor for. Um she like told me about it and I was like, "Oh my gosh, JRME." So like I feel like half the articles I read are from one of their published things and it's so cool because I can like go through their entire database and just look at like stuff that's literal music education related research that they thought was good enough to publish. So just looking through like one database and looking up a word like competition or, you know, whatever you're interested in is a really cool way to start. And then like just reaching out to your professors and asking about things is also a really good way to do it. I mean, that's how I got started is reaching out. Carrie Adams was one of my teachers for music ed too. So like she basically was my professor. So even though I feel like I don't know, it's she's more like on a friend level than a professor level to me now, but um like just reaching out to her and Dr. Napolis, like everyone has been super interested in all of my questions because they're like nobody as an undergrad wants to do this kind of thing. So they love when someone wants to and they get involved because they can talk for so long and just have so many Zooms with them. Like it's so cool to get to know my professors a little bit better outside of class because sometimes I feel like I don't know how to do that very well. Kind of hard, but yeah, that's how I would say to get involved.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Hmm.
Cool. So is there anything else we want to cover?
I feel good about it.
Yeah, I think we've hit most of our bases. We had a list of questions, and I think we skipped around a little bit in it, but
Mhm.
no, I think we've covered most of it.
Yeah.
So if anyone who's watching has any more questions for us, this will eventually be posted to Facebook. So you can leave other questions in the comments, and we'll hang out and see if we can answer some of them.
Yeah, exactly. And like we said, neither of us are like professional researchers or anything. I mean, Leah's way closer to that than me.
But
But
possibly way less qualified. So
it's a trade-off, but we'll try and give you the best advice we can or send you to somebody who knows way better than we do
yeah.
because Dr. Napolis knows the most about research and she loves it. So anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope y'all got something out of this.
Yeah. See you in up front or around. I won't see you around for a while, but I probably will.
Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.